my name's Kerry, I work at SUBU, and today I'm going to show you during this video how to decorate Halloween cupcakes 4 ways. So hopefully by the end of this video we should have some cupcakes that look like this. So I'm not going to actually make the cupcakes during the course of this video. I have made them myself, I promise, but I made them a little bit earlier today so we can just concentrate on the decorating of them. So before they went into the oven, they look like this. Afterwards, they look like this. And here they are now. So these are the ones that we're going to be using in the video. It was a really easy cupcake recipe. I'll include the link to the one that I used in particular, but any kind of cupcake recipe will do. Super easy. If you can make a cake, you can definitely make these cupcakes. So as I said, we're going to concentrate on just decorating them today. So here's all the ingredients that you'll need for decoration. It does look like quite a lot, but that's, as I said, to make 4 different types. If you did want to only make a couple or just narrow it down to one, then obviously you're going to need less ingredients, so you can scale it back down a little bit. But all of the cupcakes that we're going to make today need buttercream. They will have a kind of buttercream topping to them, so it makes sense for us to start there. So today I'm just going to use a really basic buttercream recipe. So this is going to use 100 grams of unsalted butter, and I'm going to put that straight into the mixer. You can do this in a stand mixer if you've got one like this, or you can do it with an electric whisk, or you could even do it by hand. It just might take a little bit longer and you'll get tired arms by the end of it. But what we're going to start to do is just very quickly kind of make sure that butter is really soft and creamy. So we're going to switch on the mixer. Okay, so once we're sure that the butter is nice and soft, we're then going to add in the icing sugar. So as I said, that was 100 grams of butter, and then you want twice as much icing sugar, so we're going to be using 200 grams. So you can pop it all straight in, and then we're just going to mix it. So essentially what you want to do is just mix and mix and mix until it's really, oh, I've already made a mess, that's a good start. You just want to mix and mix and mix until it's really smooth, really creamy, really kind of light and fluffy. The thing I always tend to find is mix it for much longer than you think it's going to need to be mixed. There's no flour or anything in it, so you don't need to worry about that. It's just the sugar and just the butter, so there's nothing that's kind of going to get overworked in that. So just mix and mix and mix. As I said, until you've got something that's really kind of light and pale and fluffy. I'm going to fast forward this because it might take some time. Okay, so after a few minutes, once you've got something, like I said, really kind of quite pale in colour, then we're just going to add a little bit of milk, sort of about a teaspoon's worth, a tablespoon rather. Just add that straight in. And then we're also going to add about a teaspoon this time of vanilla extract, just to give it some flavour. So once you've popped those 2 things in, again, just give it another quick mix, but because you've done a lot of the hard work already, it's basically just to incorporate those 2 things in. Okay, so then hopefully, once you've mixed it, you've got everything you need off the whisk. We should hopefully have some buttercream that looks like this. Okay, so for the cupcakes that we're making, we want 3 different types of buttercream. So we're going to have one that's brown, so we're going to add some cocoa powder. We're going to add one, need one that's green, so we're going to add some green food colouring, and then we want one that's just going to stay the plain vanilla. So what I'm going to do is take out some that we want to keep as the vanilla, and take out some that we want to keep make into green. But then the one that we want to turn brown with the cocoa powder, I'm going to leave it in this bowl because then we're going to mix it again. So divide it roughly into 3. It obviously doesn't matter too much, and it depends if you're kind of making all the different floor colour cupcakes, or if you just want to make a couple of different types. So I'm just going to put a few scoops into these bowls, and then I'm going to leave a similar-ish sort of amount in the bowl. Pop the whisk back on, and then you're just going to pop in a little bit of cocoa powder, just really to kind of make it the sort of desired colour that you want. So probably about somewhere between a teaspoon and a tablespoon. We'll give that a mix and see how it looks. Always tends to get stuck around the side. Could already see that's maybe a tiny bit too pale, so we'll just add a touch more. Okay, so once it's the right sort of chocolatey colour, we can then pop that into another bowl. So at this point you should have the chocolate one and then still the two vanilla ones. So just kind of get as much of it as you can out of the bowl. Oh. There we go. Okay, so you should have the brown one, and then some that's still left white, and some more that's left white. But one of those isn't going to stay white for much longer. What we're going to do is add a little bit of food colouring. It's always best, if you can, to just do a little bit at first, because you can always add more colouring. Okay, so that's probably, I would say, still a little bit too pale. So we're going to add a touch more. That's probably too much. Yeah, it's safe to say that is now pretty green. But just give that a mix. And then there you go. We should have 3 different colours of buttercream. So the first one, I'm just going to move some of this out of the way. The first one that we're going to put together is the one with the glass. So I will show you how to put that together. So you're going to take one of the cupcakes, and then we're going to take the vanilla, pop the other two to the side, and all we're going to do is just take some of the buttercream and spread it over the top. The good thing about some of these cupcakes is they definitely don't have to be kind of very neat with the buttercream. So, in fact, it's Halloween. The messier they look, the better. So, what we're going to do is just cover that all the way over with some of the vanilla buttercream. Okay, so should look like that. Like I said, it doesn't need to be neat at all. But then what we're going to do is add the glass. So this is really straightforward to do. All you need is some mints, some plain mints, not like butter ones or anything like that, just the plain kind of glass-looking glacier mints. And then all you're going to do is unwrap them, about half a packet's worth, and then you're just going to put them in a saucepan. Take you a little while to unwrap all of them. So pop it in a saucepan, and then you're just going to put that on the hob on a really, really low heat until they've all kind of melted. It won't take very long, and keep an eye on it. But then once it's all melted, what you want to do is pour it onto a baking sheet, baking tray that's got some greaseproof or baking parchment on it, and then it's going to look, hopefully you can see this, like that. So what we need to do now, you can lift it up, you can see a whole piece like that. It's quite sticky to the touch, but what we need to do is obviously crack that to make it look like shards of glass. So I'm going to use the end of a rolling pin and just sort of bash it as much as you like, really. Okay, so I'm going to go one more, maybe another. Okay, so all that's then done is broken that into shards. So hopefully you can see that. So it looks pretty realistic. Okay, so I'm just going to move that to that side so we can see. So we've got the cupcake that we have put the vanilla frosting on top of. And then we're just going to take some of these shards and pierce the cupcake and the frosting. And you can kind of use as much of this as you want to. I tend to think the kind of bits that look sharper are best because they just kind of look a bit more sort of realistic. And then, yeah, as I said, you just sort of stab it into the cake. Take another couple of bits. There we go. And hopefully you can see, just pokes them straight into the cake and through the buttercream. And then what we're going to do is add some fake blood. So this is one I've made earlier, but this is really easy, really straightforward to make. So it's literally just 1 tablespoon of maple syrup, 1 tablespoon of golden syrup, and then some red food colouring. And it's very sweet, so I added a little bit of salt as well. So we're just going to drizzle this at the bottom of the glass to make it kind of look like blood. If you don't have kind of maple syrup or golden syrup, tons of other things that you could use. You could just crush up some raspberries, or you could use some jam, like raspberry jam or strawberry jam, if you just kind of heat it and let it down with a little bit of water. Just kind of anything that sort of looks blood-like, really. So what we're going to do is then just add some of this onto the cupcake. You really don't need very much, it goes quite far, but also, as I said, it's really sweet. So then you just sort of dribble it on the base of the glass, and you can kind of go over some of the shards of glass if you want to. It just gets quite kind of sticky. And then I quite like to kind of let some of it drip off. I should have said none of this is very clean cooking. It's going to be quite messy and you're going to have quite a lot of cleaning to do by the end of it, but I quite like that. Okay, so then yeah, you just kind of drip as much blood as you want to. And then there we go. That is the first cupcake done. Shards of glass. Okay, so now that we've done the glass cupcakes, the ones that we're going to move on to are the gravestone cupcakes. So this one is going to use the chocolate frosting that we made, the chocolate buttercream. And also we're going to need some melted chocolate. So what I have done is just melted a bar of dark chocolate in the microwave. You can do it on the stove, but it's just as easy, or quicker in the microwave. So what I've got here is just a pint glass, and then I've just put a sandwich bag inside the pint glass, and this sandwich bag is going to act as our kind of cheats piping bag. So what you want to do is just make sure that all of the chocolate's melted, you haven't got any lumps, and then we're just going to pour it straight into our piping bag. So make sure that we get all of what we can. Okay, so this chocolate in the piping bag is actually going to be used on all 3 of the kind of rest of the cupcakes. Okay, so we should have plenty in there then. So now what we're going to do, you can hopefully see that all of the chocolate is just collected in the bottom of the sandwich bag. So we're just going to kind of twist, make sure it all sort of stays in one place. And then once we're ready, we're going to cut off a tiny, tiny little bit of the nib, of the tip of the bag, and then that's how we're going to pipe. So I'm just going to set that to one side for a second. So firstly, I'm going to grab another one of our cupcakes, and this time, as I said, we're going to put the chocolate frosting on top. Just make sure it's all mixed. then grab some of the chocolate frosting, and very similar to the glass ones, this doesn't have to be neat at all. If anything, looks a bit better. If it's a bit sort of raggedy, it adds to the effect. Fantastic. So once that is covered in the chocolate frosting, what we are then going to need is our gravestones. So for this, we're just going to use some rich tea fingers. So these are the ones that look like this. So what we're going to do is just kind of snap that slightly over half of it, and then that's going to stick into our cupcake and become the gravestone. But there's a couple other things that we want to do before that. So in comes in our chocolate. So what we're going to do, as I said, is just cut off very tiny little bit of the end of the piping bag. So if you just kind of squeeze it and make sure there's nothing in it at the tip, and then just cut off tiny bit. As I said, you can always kind of, take off some more if you cut too little off at first, but if you kind of cut too much off, then it's just a bit of a disaster. So then just kind of pipe onto anything. So you can hopefully see there that I've got quite a nice sort of thin strip of chocolate, so that should be absolutely fine for writing. And then what we're going to do is just write on the gravestone. Obviously you can write whatever you want. I'm going to go for RIP because that's a bit of a classic. So just on the R. Oh, chocolate going everywhere. I'm going to grab some kitchen roll. It's always good to have some of that on hand. Then I'm going to do the dot, and then I, and then another dot, and then P. Okay, fantastic. So what we're going to do is then put our gravestone into our cupcake. And again, just like you did with the glass, you just kind of want to shove it through the frosting and into the actual cake as well, and then it should sit nice and proud like that. And then the finishing touch of these cupcakes is the kind of dirt and the soil in the graveyard. So what we're going to do for this is use a couple of Oreos. We're going to take out the white bit, just use the actual biscuit itself, crush it up, and then that'll be our soil. Okay, so what I will do is we're just going to separate them, and then grab another bowl. So we're just going to take, very carefully, just going to take out the white bit of the Oreo, and you can just kind of discard that because we don't need it. You have to be quite careful doing this because obviously they're quite fragile. Okay, and then we're just going to pop that in our bowl. And again, much like we did with the glass, we're just going to use the end of the rolling pin, which has probably still got some mint glass on the end of it, and just crush up the Oreos. If you can, it's probably best to leave a little bit of texture. You want it to look as much like kind of soil and dirt as possible. Okay, so then once we've got quite a sort of like rough and ready mixture, and you can kind of crush it with your fingers as well as a little bit, we're then just going to sprinkle that on top of the chocolate. What you can also do as well, if you have any like desiccated coconut or anything in the cupboards, you can use some of the green food colouring that we've already used, mix that in with a bit of the coconut and sprinkle that on as well, and that looks like kind of grass, which looks pretty cool as well. Okay, and there we go. That's our second cupcake done. Gravestone. Okay, so the third cupcake that we're going to do is the mummy cupcake. This one's really straightforward and needs very little prep because we've already got all of the ingredients for it. So it's going to use the chocolate that we just melted in the piping bag, and it's also going to use the rest of the white buttercream. So what I've done is just popped that into a sandwich bag like we did with the chocolate, but this time I've just cut a slightly kind of bigger hole in it and a more kind of diagonal hole, and you'll see what that's for shortly. So what we're going to need is a couple of white chocolate buttons. So get those out of the packet, and these are going to become the mummy eyes. So, because they're eyes, we're going to need to add some eyeballs. So if you just kind of turn them over to the back side, so it's the flat side, and then we're just going to take a tiny bit of the chocolate that we melted and do a couple of eyeballs. So you just need a little bit of chocolate in the middle. There we go, you can see that. And then we're just going to grab another one of our cupcakes. And if you put another little bit of chocolate on the back, that's just going to act as your sort of glue. And pop that onto the cupcake. So there we go. Hopefully you can see my mummy's got a couple of eyes. And then all that you need to do now is just kind of, to make it look like bandages, just take the white buttercream all over the top in kind of various different directions on the cupcake. Make sure I've got it in the right direction. So then, as I said, and again with all of these, you don't need to be super neat because it's all in the kind of Halloween spirit. So then you're just going to take buttercream and go various different directions over the surface and kind of over the eye a little bit. I like to take it across, just over the top of the cupcake, all the way to the edges. And there you go. There we have our third cupcake, our mummy cupcake. Okay, so last but not least, coming around to our final cupcake, and this is going to be our scary face cupcake. So what we need for this one is the buttercream that we coloured green. Haven't used that yet. So again, just give it a good mix, and then we're just going to spread it all over the top of the cupcake. This is the one that, if you can, try and be a little bit neater, because it'd be good to have a kind of flat surface for the face, but it really doesn't matter too much if not. So we're just going to be quite generous, make sure it's all the way to the edges. And then when we're confident we've got that, if possible, we're just going to try and smooth it over a little bit. Okay. So then we've got covered in green. Just going to wipe my hands. So then we're just going to take again the melted chocolate. Where have I put it? Melted chocolate, and then just kind of go a bit crazy. We're just going to kind of pipe a face onto it, and it can obviously be whatever you want it to. You could also, if you've got any orange food colouring looking around, you could make these orange instead and do like kind of pumpkin designs on them, but just kind of get creative. So I'm going to kind of go for a bit of a skeleton type one. So just going to do the mouth, and again it's Halloween, so I think it's safe to say the kind of rougher it looks, the better. So we're just going to do some faces. I've got a mouth, do a couple of nostrils, and then we're going to do some frowny eyes, and that's it. So like I said, with these ones you can be as creative as possible and do any kind of face that you want, but that is our last cupcake, our scary face. So there you have it. That was all four. Very messy, got very sticky hands, but that's all four of our Halloween cupcakes. Hope you enjoyed it. I hope you try it, give it a go. Like we said, don't have to be perfect, as messy as possible. It's Halloween, that's what it's all about. So yeah, thanks for watching.